What's up, everybody? My name is Daniel Unmanageable, and this is Hard Knox Talks. Tonight's guest, person living well with substance use disorder and fierce harm reduction advocate Sarah Laurel, is here to share her inspiring story of overcoming a traumatic battle with her disorder and homelessness to become the founder and executive director of Savage Sisters Foundation, running 6 safe houses, weekly outreaches, Pennsylvania statewide overdose reversal and harm reduction training, and we are going to meet her right after this.
I spent 23 years living in addiction. 16 of those years, I worked as a Red Seal tradesperson in Saskatchewan and Northern Alberta. During that time, I made many mistakes and took more than a few hard knocks. I went from tradesman to business owner to hiding from gang members and dumpster diving. But with that lived experience, I've decided to try and make a change. I've dedicated my life to raising awareness and promoting change in the fields of substance use and psychological health and safety. So join me and my guests as we take off the blinders around mental health in our communities and at work, and shine a light on what's working and what's not working in the fields of mental health and occupational health and safety. I'm Daniel Unmanageable, and I'll be your host, and this is Hard Knox Talks.
All right, before we bring in Sarah, I'd just like to let you know that tonight's live production is brought to you in part by Prairie Sky Recovery Centre in Leipzig, Saskatchewan, and Stronger Together Canada, peer-led support groups by Moms Stop the Harm. To learn more about our sponsors, to get on our email list and more, go to www.hardknoxtalks.com. All right, let's bring in Sarah. What's up, my friend?
Hi, how are ya?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no problem. When Chauncey told me a little bit about you, I think I had you on the phone like 10 minutes later. So, is there anything that you'd like to say before we get started tonight?
No, I mean, I'm just very grateful to be here and excited to talk about some of my experiences, and I hope that I can be relatable to at least one person. So I appreciate the opportunity.
Awesome. All right. Well, let's jump in.
Oh.
Sorry, something happened off camera. Like, okay, I have to, now that I've done, I have to tell somebody. Like, I'm sitting here and Donna's like getting my attention, and I'm like, oh my God, what's wrong? And she's like, sounds good.
So everything's good to go.
Yeah, I guess it was, yeah. So that's wonderful. So anyways.
Well, in my defense, you're all like, is she too loud before the show?
Yeah.
So now I'm just reassuring him, everything's good.
So anyways, let's pay attention to Sarah now. So tell us, let's start from the beginning. Tell us what it was like growing up.
Okay, so I born and raised in South Philly. It's a section of Philadelphia. So I have an Irish Catholic mom and I have a Middle Eastern dad. And so my mom's obviously Catholic and my dad's Muslim. Lots of religious dogma in my face growing up. Tons of brothers and sisters. We were not wealthy by any means. In fact, we were pretty poor. But there was a lot of love in our house. We never had a TV. We weren't allowed to watch TV. We were only allowed to read books. And yeah, I mean, I don't think that there was anything super traumatic that took place in my childhood other than just being super different from everybody that we were around just because of who my dad was. And, you know, he didn't really speak English and we weren't allowed to engage in a lot of the things that the local kids were doing. So it just kind of bonded us. And then We did move out of the city when I was in high school. Um, but yeah, my brothers and sisters and I'm the second oldest, and there's 10 of us.
Holy cow.
And we're very, we're just really a close family. It was a good experience. There was some stuff that took place that, like, I'm not going to get into, but I don't really remember. I mean, I definitely smoked and drank when I was in high school, but when I got out of high school, I um, actually got a really good career
Hmm.
with a very large hotel chain, and I climbed the corporate ladder. But my childhood was a little bit different than other people. We didn't have cartoons and TV. We had a lot of reading and a lot of sibling shit stuff.
What does that mean?
We just had to, like, entertain ourselves.
Oh, okay.
That's all I
So,
meant. Like, we just
so
it was always up.
do you think that that had like a negative impact on your life, or was that like a positive thing? Because a lot of you grew up hearing the last generation say, "Oh, TV rots your brain." Like, so how did? Is there any truth to that? Like,
I would say that, like, when I moved out and was kind of introduced to all of that in my own apartment, and I was pretty surprised and shocked. I also think that there was just a space in my life when I started, like, thinking on my own and not, like, just saying, like, okay, this is what my mom and dad have told me. And when I
mhm.
started kind of developing my own sense of whatever, everything, I was a little hurt. I was also shocked. I was like, they've been lying this whole time. Like, there was a
Mhm.
lot of stuff that, like, I didn't understand, and I wasn't, I would say, socially mature.
Mhm.
Um, we were very sheltered in a sense of, a lot of different things. I was a virgin until I was 19. So, and I also believed thoroughly that, like, when we were kids, being, like, growing up, and I was just sharing about this recently,
Mhm.
I remember my mom telling us about, like, the rapture, and we had these candles under our beds, and I remember her saying, like, everybody, the whole world's going to go dark, and the only thing that's going to light the earth is, like, this candle, and, like, demons are going to prowl and, like, that was how we were raised. Like, I truly believed that, like, that was going to take place. So, like,
Wow.
growing up, after I grew up, it was kind of like developing a sense of, like, that's not real. And, like, I was terrified. And most
Yeah.
of the decisions that I made in my life up to that point were based around absolute terror, regarding, religion.
Were you mad when you found that out?
I was pissed, dude.
Did you call mom?
I was very pissed. Yeah, we didn't speak for a few years. We had a very tumultuous relationship.
Hmm.
I didn't speak to my dad. In fact, I mean, he kind of still doesn't really speak to me. I bring shame to the family. So,
Mm.
yeah, no, a lot of issues. Just a lot of issues, I would say,
Yeah.
that we're still. It's a weird space to be in, but yeah, I've dealt with them.
How old were you the first time you got loaded?
Oh, please. The first time I smoked weed, I was like 11. And but, like, the first time I do remember doing certain drugs in high school, but
Hmm.
it wasn't until I'd moved out and moved back to the city, and I had my son Dylan, and I was, like, as soon as I lost my virginity at 19, I, like, immediately got pregnant because I didn't understand anything about safe sex. I was told that it was, like, terrible.
Uh-huh.
And so, kid. So I just, like, had a kid, and then that didn't work out, and I moved to the city by myself, and I had a pretty good job working for this hotel. Um, and that was when I was introduced to Percocets. That
Hmm.
was different for me. So I would say about 21.
Yeah. So how did that happen? Was that a prescription, or was that a party, or what was that?
So it started out as a prescription for carpal tunnel.
Hmm.
Um, and then that progressed. I mean, I don't know, like, it just, I took them a lot, and I liked the way that they made me feel. I don't think at the time I was, like, fully aware of everything that was taking place, but I liked the way that they made me feel. I felt like I could get everything done that I needed to get done, and I was really focused. But the one thing I remember during those couple of years was I started to get tired more. So I told my doctor this, and then I got a prescription for Adderall. So I was on Adderall and Percocet at the same time, and the prescription just got shut off, like the doctor cut me off completely. But I was like a city kid, so I just started copping on the street. And I was so kind of delusional at that point. I didn't see anything wrong with it, and I just kind of kept going and
Why'd he
taking
cut
more
you
and
off?
taking more. Yeah, he cut me off completely.
Why?
He said I was just done.
Just one day, he's like, "No, you don't need these anymore," and that was it.
Yeah, he was like, we're not going to fill the prescription again, because he wanted me to take some kind of a steroid shot in my wrist.
Okay.
And for whatever reason at the time, I was like, I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
And so it wasn't even, I don't even really remember, because it's been so many years, what I really thought at that moment, but I just went to the street and started copping.
Like right away, not even a second thought.
No. I knew people that had them, itchies. We called them itchies on the street. They were a big deal. I knew some people were taking them, you know. I had heard of people doing oxys in high school. I just didn't mess with that type of thing.
Mhm.
So I just called my girl and I was like, "Yo, I need itchies." And that was it. And it never stopped. Like, it just progressively got worse. I did a lot more. I had gone to stay with my dad. I had kind of gotten into a negative situation in a relationship, and I had gone to stay with my dad for a month, and there was nothing out there. There was no way I could get anything, and I just didn't think twice about it. I just thought, I'm just not going to take them, you know?
Get sick?
And then I detoxed. Oh my God, awful. And that was my first time. You know what the thing was, though? I didn't know I was detoxing.
You just thought you were sick?
I just remember, yeah, I remember being there for a couple weeks and just being like, what is wrong with me? It didn't like click in my head, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And then I came home. It was like a few more weeks after I came home. And as soon as I touched the tarmac in Philly, I hit up my dude and I was like, I was so excited to get them, because I hadn't had them in like almost like 6 to 8 weeks, I think it was.
Mm-hmm.
And that was it. And then I started to realize, and then I think I tried to like take myself down a little, because I was like, holy shit, like I'm acting like, I'm acting like bad here.
Mm-hmm.
And then I just didn't care. I honestly, I was like, I'm doing this.
So what
And I
happened to your
just kept
job?
using.
You mentioned you had a good job. When did that go sideways?
I left my job in like an actually like a good way. I gave 2 weeks resignation. I never slacked off. I was an incredible employee until I decided to leave. And then I went to a different job that was offering me more money. And actually at this other job, it was like a director of sales position. The maintenance guys that worked in the building would talk to me about itchies. Like, it was just so common that the staff in this place took Percocets. And I remember sitting at my desk in my little sales office, and I would always smoke cigarettes with like certain people, and he would just come in and like drop a couple Perc 10s on my desk and he'd be like, here you go, have a good day. I didn't pay for them. He would just drop them off. It was like the pills in that situation were insane. And I was like, I can get down with this business. Like, I couldn't believe it. I kept it so quiet at the other organization the other company.
Mm-hmm.
And it got bad. I was not able to keep that job for very long. I also stopped paying my rent. I just stopped. I stopped paying my car note, like everything that I, and then I was like blown away when I got like an eviction notice and my car got repossessed. And the way that I'm like, most people would be like, yeah, no, yeah, of course.
Yeah, no, you're shocked.
But I was the last one to see that like I had a problem. I was like, why am I getting, where's my car?
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't believe it. I was the last one to find out that I had a problem with addiction.
So where did you go after the eviction and the car's gone? Where'd you end up?
So I ended up at my mom's briefly, and then I had left that one company and I got a job offer because even when I was working at like 50% capacity, I was still like I'm an addict. I was a really good salesperson, and
Mhm.
I was able to kind of like maneuver my way into another job, and that was kind of my downfall in a way, was that I was able to kind of manipulate and maneuver for so many years, and like kind of fly under the radar. I got a house out in the suburbs. I had my brothers move in. My brothers are younger than me. So at that point, I bumped up my usage. I was working from home. It was a remote position.
Mhm.
And then I added, not just the pills, I had alcohol. I was my younger brothers, so they were like having like, young college age kids coming over and like playing beer pong. So I was doing that, and like it got really, really unmanageable. Um, I got into a relationship. Well, no, had been in a relationship, and we had broken up. We'd been broken up for about a year. Um, and like one stupid drunken night, like I ended up getting pregnant. Um, was not, I don't recommend that for people that are actively using substances in that way. I didn't even find out I was pregnant until very far into the pregnancy. But I had my daughter. And then I moved in with my mom. Like I was like, oh, I can't do this job. Like I have to take care of the baby. And I moved in with my mom.
Mhm.
And about 4 weeks after, started doing heroin.
Wow.
So
So did you use all the way through the pregnancy?
no, but I used far into it because I
Mm.
didn't know I was actually pregnant. So I obviously, like, I stopped smoking and drinking, and I to like kind of tapered myself off of the perks. Um, and I thought like, okay, like this is going to be okay, but I wouldn't say I was abstinent because there
Mhm.
were times where like I would take them, but the thing was I gave birth in a birth center, and like they test you for everything. So I knew that I couldn't use once I started going to my midwives because I had like I had to go in and do these like stress tests, and like whatever. I had like low blood pressure, so if that would have came up, they wouldn't have allowed me to give birth there. So I was, for some reason, like I don't even know, I just kind of like got through, but it was only 4 months, like I found out I was pregnant when I was 6 months in.
Yeah.
Well, 5.5 months. And then immediately afterwards, I remember, shit, dude. I'm talking like it's the night that I got home after pushing the baby out. I called my dude because I was like, I'm in pain, like I need a 30. And I remember how incredible it felt because it had been so long. And I went right to a 30.
Mhm.
And I was like, whew, this is what I've been missing because I was like miserable.
Yeah.
And I didn't know why either. I
Mhm.
still wasn't like, I'm an addict. Like I have a serious problem and I need help. That had not crossed my mind whatsoever.
Yeah.
Um, and then I got a job bartending in Center City, Philly, and it was like a cocktail bartend job. And one of the cocktail waitresses, I thought she was snorting 30s, but she was snorting dope. And to be fair, I wouldn't have cared either if she told me it was dope or not. I wanted some, and I started snorting it. And
Okay, hang on
I
a sec.
remember
Hang on a
calling
sec.
her
Hang on. So you're call what do you mean dope? I mean it's all dope.
heroin.
What
Heroin.
okay. Okay. We just have a little bit different words up here. That's all. It's all the same shit. Like I'm just trying to be clear. That's all. So.
So yeah, that was like when I started doing dope, and I did dope. It was so much cheaper,
Mhm.
and it was so much more potent. Uh, and then yeah, I started shooting it a few months later,
Mhm.
and it was terrible. That everything once I went to the syringe, once I became an IV user, that was it. I was gone.
Mhm.
So
So in our conversations before and what I read in the bio you sent, you had some pretty negative experiences with the healthcare system, and you spent a pretty good amount of time homeless. Can you tell us a little about that?
yeah, so I had been to treatment. I mean, total, I've been to treatment 28 times. I didn't really complete treatment very often.
Hmm.
Uh, and I'd been to jail. Once I kind of crashed at my mom's house when I was like first doing it. And then I got in trouble, and um, my house got raided, and I was hit with like 54 charges. It was my first time being in trouble with the law, and I didn't really know what was going on. And so my immediate kind of response to that was to run. Um, so the reason that I stopped going back to my mom's house, which was like where my kid was at, and where my family was, because I couldn't keep a job at this point, was because I was afraid of getting arrested. So I started just kind of hanging around in Kensington, which is like one of the US's like largest open air drug markets. It's like a scene that you could just get anything anywhere. And at the time, I knew a lot of people because I'd been in and out of so many treatment centers, and like I had lived in certain recovery houses, and I once I started going to jail, it was a wrap. So
Hmm.
every time I would stay away, I stayed away not because I was like I want to go be homeless. It was because like I didn't want to get arrested and go to jail. Um and so I just kind of stayed there.
Hmm.
Um Kensington's crazy to be homeless in too. And I always ran alone, where like a lot of people that run in Kensington, they run with like a partner, or so, like a protector, if you will. I
Hmm.
never did that. I did not ever link up. Just like it just never happened that I would be with somebody and trust them enough to run with me. I always ran solo, and a lot of bad stuff happens when you're running solo, especially
Hmm.
when you're a 5'1" female. And at the
Yeah.
time, I was like 89 pounds.
Hmm.
So it is kind of like the wild, wild west down there. There's a lot. It's one of the highest like drug and crime environments first of all, in Pennsylvania, period, full stop.
Hmm.
It's one of the largest open air drug markets, which means you can walk down the street at any point and you don't have to know anybody. They just shout it out right to you. Like I walked into we call them a poppy store. It's just like a corner store. I walked into the poppy the other day, and like as soon as I walked in, there were three dudes at the door, and they were like subs, perks, zannies, dope, trank, like everything. They just started listing every substance. You could just get whatever you need.
Hmm.
But obviously with that kind of level of like open air drug market taking place, you had hundreds of people that were unhoused. You had encampments, lots of sex crimes and like violence, lots of physical violence, stabbings, shootings. So you just kind of got to get in where you fit in, and you can't escape without some kind of crazy stuff happening. I've seen people get murdered. I've been stabbed. I've had some much more crazy traumatic things happen. I've been raped. I've had bottles broken over my head. Like you
Yeah.
name it. It's just a Tuesday in Kensington.
So what? I mean, all of this stuff happened. What finally brought you to a place where you like realized that you had a problem? Like, how far into this were you when you're like, maybe I have a problem?
So by the time I had like all the charges, I knew I had a problem.
Hmm.
Um, I just I wasn't ready. I knew I absolutely had a problem, and I think it kind of shifted. There was like a year or two where I was like, I have a problem, I need help. And then
Hmm.
in those like 24 months, I just kept failing. I kept going into treatment and not having my detox symptoms like treated to the point where like I was comfortable enough to stay. So I would just bounce. I wasn't cool with the physical withdrawal.
Yeah.
I always had seizures like like I didn't like it. And I felt like I was always like 28 times, like, come on, it's enough.
Yeah.
And so like I would just get to a point where I was like, I'm out of here, like I'm done. So after those like 2 real years where I was like continuously trying to go into detox and like continuously trying to give myself that chance to like do it, I think I got like 90 days one time and it was a wrap. I got a burglary charge. It was like a nightmare. And then I was like, fuck it. I'm going to Kensington and I'm not looking back.
Mhm.
And at that point, that was when I was like, I'm never going to change. I'm going to die with a needle in my neck. I don't care who it offends. You know, my family said something about a needle being in one of the rooms when I was there. And I was like, if you invite me, I'm bringing syringes. Like, I'm a heroin addict. Like, you're either going to understand that this is who I am, or like, I'm just going to disappear. And I just disappeared. And I was like, I'm stuck. And I had, at that point, I don't want to get sober. Yeah, I'm good. Like, I'll stay like this. I don't visually or like emotionally or like mentally think
Mhm.
I can ever get out of this place.
Yeah. You didn't see a future.
Nah.
Yeah. So I finally did it.
So in the summer of 2017, oh my God, it was the worst. It was the worst summer ever. I had seen a lot of really, really bad things. Actually, it's so many that I can't even like get into it. But one of the like most haunting things that I watched was this young guy get physically like beaten to death, and like for nothing. For like nothing, and I was terrified. But I didn't stop at that point. I had actually went to a different trap house, and I was like kind of staying there for a little bit. And there were three individuals. There had been a shooting on the block a couple weeks earlier, and my regulars that were like usually around the block, they were in the hospital, and one of them was dead. And so there's these like new young guys, and I was alone on the second floor of a trap house in the middle of the night, getting high, and they came up. It's an abando. A trap house is just like an abandoned house.
Yeah.
They came up and we got into like a physical fight, and I ended up getting thrown out of a second story window. I didn't lose consciousness. I tried to move and I couldn't. I didn't know what was wrong with me. I ended up getting dragged to a vacant lot, and I was there. I'm not going to get into everything that took place, but they did not call an ambulance. It was not over for about 15 hours. I didn't get to the ICU until 15 hours later. I had a lot of injuries, contusions in my head, broken nose. My leg was separated from my hip bone. My knee was crushed. My ankles were broken. I had broken ribs. My shoulder was fractured. So it was a decent ass whooping.
Sounds
And
like it. Yeah, not bad.
I went, I was in ICU for a minute, and I had to get surgery on my leg to learn to walk again.
Mm-hmm.
And I tried my usual shenanigans. I called all my brothers and sister, and I called my mom, and I was like, you just gotta let me come home, even though I'm in a wheelchair. And everybody was like, no, absolutely not. You're going to a recovery house. And in a wheelchair, I went to a recovery house, and I didn't walk into an AA meeting and was like, I want to get sober. Like, I was wheeled in, and I was wheeled in with gritted teeth. And that's how it happened.
It's an incredible story. So tell us about your first year. I mean, so when you went to your first AA meeting, you didn't want to go, correct?
No.
So what did you hear?
No.
So what did you hear?
So I wouldn't say I heard anything in the beginning. I was really, it wasn't like the AA meetings that made a big difference. It was the woman that met me, that I had met previously a few years earlier, that I got the 90 days with.
Mm-hmm.
And she was just
that in the
incredible.
program as well?
Yeah.
The 90
days? When I got it was the only time I ever got 90 days. They asked her to sponsor me, and she was incredible. Anyway, as the universe designed, I was sitting in the recovery house that would become Savage Sisters, and I got a Facebook message from her, and she was just like, hey, just checking in, like seeing like how you are or something. And I immediately was like, my mom called you and told you to call me. Like, don't call me. I'm not doing step work with you.
Mm-hmm.
And She was like, no, that's not what happened. I literally was just checking in on you. And she's
Mm-hmm.
like, you ready to get to work? And I was like, no way. I was
Mm-hmm.
like, I'm not going to work, nothing. But she was kind and she was understanding and she was non-judgmental, and she came to the house and she sat across from me, and for the first time in my life, I had a woman sitting before me that was allowing me the space to feel, to cry, to be angry, to be enraged. I was enraged at this point, and she understood. And I could feel it. I could energetically feel that she understood me. And I
Mm-hmm.
felt safe. And for a homeless, like heroin addicted, crack, coke, Xanny addicted person, to say that they felt safe with someone, I hadn't felt that in years.
Mm-hmm.
So I listened to what she said, and we went through the big book together, and that was it.
So try help us understand. You know, when I say like, what did you hear? Now, do you remember the moment where you went from fuck you to maybe not fuck you?
So she had asked me to read the doctor's opinion, and
Okay.
I kept having all of the objections. She was like, "I need you to pray," and I was like, "No,
Mm-hmm.
I don't pray. I don't believe in God." Blah blah blah. And she said, "Okay, well, do you believe in anything?" And I was like, "I guess." And she said, "Can you say the universe? Can we go with that?" And I was like, "Yeah, whatever." And she was like, "Well, then just do it in disbelief." And then she took me to the doctor's opinion, and I read it and I couldn't comprehend it. Like I was shot out from drugs. These
Mm-hmm.
words were big words. They weren't touching my soul in any way when I sat there with this text. So she, closed the book and she spoke to me like a human at my level. And she explained to me, the phenomenon of craving. Phenomenon is something I don't understand. Craving is I want more. Whenever I have one, I don't understand it, but I want more. And it was a simple, simple statement, but it resonated in my brain because for so long I couldn't understand it, but I always wanted more. And I never came into treatment. I never came into the experiences of like trying to get sober because I wanted to be sober. I had the mental obsession and I wanted to use successfully. And she explained that to me, and I felt that was relatable to me. She was like, are you trying to stop so you can like stop? Or like, she just, the way she kind of put it to me, I was like, oh, that makes sense,
Mm-hmm.
and like it just kind of clicked. So I was willing to listen to her, and the came to believe part, like I didn't step in the door believing,
Mm-hmm.
but I liked her, and I liked the way she talked to me, and I liked the way she honored my space, and like that was something I wasn't used to. And when it came to the higher power thing, I had been told for decades what my mom's higher power was, what my dad's higher power was. I was told what religious dogma was. But I had never had an intimate relationship with a higher power because I had no control over it.
Mm-hmm.
And my sponsor and AA gave me that opportunity. And they were like, hey, you get to decide what your higher power is. And that allowed me the space to have an intimate relationship with it. That wasn't like associated with religion, and it wasn't associated with all the guilt and the shame and the lower frequency stuff. And I started to decide what that was. And it was a long process, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad that she was patient with me.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I don't know. I hope that answers your question.
So when you came in and the fog somewhat cleared and you decided that maybe there is something else out there that can help you, many of us, we want to run out and start saying sorry. We get a moment of clarity. We get that 8 seconds of clarity, right? And we're like, oh, I'm I'm going to go say sorry to my parents right now. Like, was that you? Did you run out and try to start making amends, or did you do them in order?
No, I did all of my steps in like full order. I took the suggestions of my sponsor. I did it, I know some people do it in like 72 hours. Like I didn't do it like that. Um, and I was just whatever she told me to do, I did.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's like that's the most important thing for me as like an arrogant egomaniac that has like huge addiction issues to be able to take direction again. I mean, that was like a big deal for me, and I had to be humble enough to take the direction.
Mm-hmm.
Can't really skip to the amends part and do it honestly anyway. I understand why people do it. I hear about people doing it in treatment. I did it in treatment, like my fake amends, where I'm like, I'm sorry for everything I did for you, but bring me a pack of cigarettes and like $40 for the vent. Like that's how I did it, like
Yeah.
being an asshole.
Yeah.
But this time around, I don't know how to explain it. I was so broken. I was shattered. I wasn't in a rush to do anything. Not only was I physically slowed down because I was in a wheelchair, but I was emotionally and spiritually exhausted. I had seen so many sad, horrific, traumatic things, and just being able to like wake up every day and follow simple instructions, like, and take a deep breath, So when my sponsor said, don't skip to this step, I was like, bet, dude, because I'm tired. Like I was so tired. I think I was so willing to just like, whatever she told me to do, I was like, whatever, dude. Once we got past that initial stage where I was like, yeah, F you and F this program, she built that trust and I felt safe with her, I would just listen to her, I had to, drugs and alcohol have power over me in step 1, and then these resentments in step 4, and these fears, they dominate and control me, and then my character defects dominate and control me. And like as I'm working through these and I'm like praying away these fears and I'm doing things that keep me useful, and I'm shedding light on like my part in things, and I'm creating this list of like character defects, and I'm becoming willing to let them go. Once I get to step 9, and like I've prayed for the willingness to like honestly make amends, I'm starting to feel empowered, so I go from this like exhausted, devastated, dark space when I get to step 1, and I'm like, everything sucks. And then slowly, because I followed the program the way she suggested, it was kind of like ironing out like a really messed up shirt, like you want to take it slow and you want to do it from corner to corner. You don't start in the middle like a maniac. But I just, I started to feel more empowered once I did my honest amends, and I could put my shoulders back and hold my chin up and like tap into that divine power that's always been within. And then 10, 11, and 12 are the maintenance steps. And like, I still do those, like I'll never stop doing those. And then 11 was like that intimate relationship. I have a ritual now. I'm a ritualistic person. Like that's what I love. Rituals like that. I'm all about that. Like I had the way that I did my drugs, how I look, like everything was set a certain way. So like every day when I wake up, I have my prayer ritual, because I don't expect to have an intimate relationship with a higher power without having my specific way that I connect to that divine.
When you talk about rituals, and I'm not sure why, but this conversation I had some time ago popped into my head. Actually, no, it wasn't a conversation. It was a post that somebody posted on social media, and she was talking about the importance of ritual and how she replaced her drug using ritual with a French press coffee in the morning. She would, how the French press, it's a ritual, you got to put the coffee, you got to press it, you got to let it, do its thing. And then she had like a nice little sugar bowl and a nice little creamer. And like, that was her ritual. That's what she did to start her day, So it's when you say ritual, that popped into my head. So can you tell us a little bit about step 10? Tell us a little bit about what you do these days. Like if things start to go sideways for you.
Usually I'll reach it. Well, every time I reach out to my sponsor when I have to like talk to another alcoholic, the first thing she always says is, "Have you gone to God with this yet?" Or the universe or source energy.
Mhm.
So like throughout my day, I have to apologize immediately. And when I say immediately, I mean like within that day.
Mhm.
Normally I have to mentally process it, and like I'm in a space now where I feel like I can be accountable, but I also talk to my sponsor about it still, even if it's just shooting her a text, because I can't be that objective when it comes to myself. If it's just me reviewing my shit, I'm always coming out on top. Like you're always
Mhm.
wrong. I'm always so like talking to my sponsor about that and just getting her input and having her give me a different perspective on how I can be helpful and not cause harm, and where I need to like apologize or where I need to be more tolerant or compassionate or understanding of others. And then sitting still, and like I used to call it the great pause.
Mhm.
Um, a lot of times I'm an impulsive creature, not just through like the way that I lived addictively, but also emotionally impulsive, like my knee jerk reaction. A lot
Mhm.
of times if I respond to that, I'm like disturbed by somebody or I feel offended by somebody, I will immediately get on the defense. So like that great pause and like implementing that and like asking the universe to come and sit with me, and help guide me so that I can be helpful to others
Mhm.
and not lead with like ego.
Do you ever catch yourself? Are you ever like, no, I don't want to have to say sorry for that?
Yeah, oh my God, all the time. What do you
Yeah,
mean?
yeah. It's like
Um,
it's not the bad
but-
part about what you're gonna do. It's that the saying sorry part would really suck.
so sometimes it's hard for me to say sorry. And
Yeah.
self-righteous anger is probably the hardest one for me because in the line of work that I do, I deal with a lot of, I would say, individuals that I don't agree with them at all. I
Mhm.
think that they are wrong. Not only do I think it, but like I know it.
Mhm.
um, but if I lose sight, I can't be helpful. If I enter in fear led with ego and like narcissistic, like you're an idiot, they're not going to listen to me. So who am I helping if I do that?
Mhm.
I have to catch myself, and sometimes I don't catch myself, and then I have to backpedal and like try and smooth it over. So it's a learning curve. Like anybody that I don't ever want to hear, if anybody's ever like, I always do everything right, like, bitch, you're lying. Like, that's
Yeah.
not real.
Yeah.
Um, that is not real. Like, that's just
Yeah.
not how we live.
Yeah. That's gonna be a reel, by the way. That's gonna be a reel on Facebook. Bitch, you lying. That's gonna be a reel. So speaking of what you do, let's talk about that now. So at what point because like you come up in the program and I came up in the program and I understand the stigma that exists in the rooms. Like when I was 90 days clean, the program was the only way, and if you don't do it this way, you're gonna die. That's how I was. So were you like that at the beginning? Like once it took hold and like you started to feel better, like were you like that? Or when did you start? Actually, a better question. When did you start realizing that harm reduction needed to be a thing?
Um, After my partner died in my arms. So about a year and a half in. So yeah. I did come in and I was super indoctrinated into like the 12 step, and I'm abstinent,
Mm-hmm.
you know. I'm very happy and excited about that for me and my journey. But you know, I wasn't beating people over the head with like the big book or anything. But the night before, his name was Pete. The night before Pete died, we were in our apartment and he had just relapsed. And he said, maybe I should get on Suboxone. And I immediately was like, why? Why would you do that? And he was like, well, I just like, I can't get any consistent sober time. And, this shit's so deadly now. And we got into a screaming fight. Um, and I can still feel how angry I was with him. I felt like he was giving up on his own sobriety. And the next day, when I came home in the afternoon, I walked into him on the ground, and there was a half a bag of fentanyl there. And he was supposed to be going to rehab that day. And I Narcaned him, and I did rescue breathing, and it was too late. And I know that it's not my fault that he died. But I will always remember that judgment that I felt towards him making that choice. And he had said it a couple times before, and I was like, you're just being lazy. Like, because of the indoctrination that I had from this fellowship, I waved away his trying to advocate for something that would probably have saved his life. And I took a different turn with it. Yeah, that's why.
Sometimes I sit and I wonder how many people have died thinking that if the program doesn't work for me, nothing will. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
that's,
yeah. So tell us now, you said something a little earlier. You said you were sitting in the sober house or the recovery house that would someday be would be Savage Sisters. Where did Savage Sisters start?
so I was in a recovery house in South Philly for 2 days. And then a friend called me, Des. We were in jail together twice, and she said, yo, I got this house. It's an empty house. My friend from high school owns it. He's going to let me start a recovery house. There's a first floor bedroom. And I was like, bet, I'm coming. So
what's the significance of the first floor bedroom?
I'm in a wheelchair.
Oh, oh yeah.
So I'm in a wheelchair. So I was like, all right, I'm with it, Also, she was my cellie twice, so I knew I loved this girl. And we laughed together like you would never know, okay? Like when you share small quarters like that with somebody, like you get to know each other pretty well. So I went there and we lived together. And then Claudia moved in, who I'd also been to jail with, and the three of us were just maniacs together. And the owner of the house wasn't in recovery. He was just a landlord. But he was like, yeah, like charge this much a week, and like you can run the program however you want, make your rules, whatever you want. He had multiple houses that he wanted us to help run. Mind you, I have like 60 days sober. I got no business doing what I'm doing. Mm-hmm. But it happened. Mm-hmm. Shortly after, Des relapsed and she left. Claudia stayed with me, and towards the end of this situation, like a year later, we had 3 houses, and I was running all 3 houses. Me and Claudia, did everything. Like we would go to the houses and like check on the girls and, get everybody to meetings, and I would make big Sunday dinners every Sunday night. And like, it was a lot of like, it was just whatever,
Did that keep you sober?
I didn't. Yeah, because, I had to be an example. A lot of times I wanted to do something that and I still did shit that I shouldn't do, but I didn't get high, And then I started to build the program, and I made a lot of mistakes, and then I suffered from those mistakes. And like, I would like make exceptions and be like, well, it's okay if you just smoke weed. And then like that person would then do dope. And I was like, oh, maybe this isn't a good thing, Mm-hmm. And, so like I started to develop the actual structure and rules, and I thought it was a pretty decent program. However, the owner of the buildings was a terrible human, and I learned that, sadly, I was still paying rent, and he wasn't paying me anything to do all of this work. And I was just such an exploited individual at this point that I literally had this mindset that I was like, oh, like, thank you so much for allowing me to do this. Meanwhile, he's raking in money. I'm not getting paid, and I'm actually paying rent to live in these houses and collect all of this money for him. and run the program and do the drug
So these are
testing and do the house search.
these are paying clients. Like
All of
you're okay.
All
Okay.
of them. Yeah. And I'm running the program and I'm getting nothing. So at the end of it, like I didn't see it at first, but Pete had said something. He was like, you do realize that you should be getting paid to do this. Like you're going and speaking in treatment centers and like I came up with the name Savage Sisters. I like branded it for me. And he would just come and collect the money, you know? And it got to the point where he was like, I'm not coming to Philly to pick the money up. You got to come to me. So here I am running around like for nothing, no pay, nothing. So I turned to him and then he was trying to tell me that I had to kick people out that were on back rent. And I was like, absolutely not. They don't have anywhere to go. So I went to my brother and I asked my brother, he was about to buy a house in South Philly. I said, let me have your house. Let me rent your house. And I want to start an actual nonprofit because I don't like the way this guy's doing stuff, but like I like the idea of Savage Sisters. I want to get a real 501c3 and like I want to help people. And he was like, all right, fine, you know. So that was how the nonprofit started. And Des and Claudia are both dead. They both died of overdoses. Des died in September 2018 and Claudia died June 20th, 2020 after getting out of jail. She suffered a fatal overdose. But Savage Sisters, the mission continues, you know? So like the harm reduction work that we do and the advocacy work that we do, like in the courtroom and in the jails and on the streets of Kensington, and like for people in their homes to have Narcan and for individuals to get like lower barrier access to like MAT and like all encompassing like whole health management housing, you know, all of that came about from this like chaotic, organic desire to just kind of create a safe space for like me and my friends.
Mm-hmm. So how long did it take? How long were you abstinent before Savage Sisters became a legitimate nonprofit?
I don't remember the date that it became a legit nonprofit. I think it might have been, I don't remember if it was 2019 or 2020, but I relapsed in 2019 after Pete died. So I have no idea.
And it sounds like you were running a sober house, like for this other person, right? Like this was an abstinent based program that you were running, correct?
All three of them. There was 3 houses, but yeah.
Right. So when you stopped doing that, was that when you turned to a more harm reduction approach?
Well, yes. So once I separated from that previous owner and got my own property that I rented from my brother, and I was like in charge of the program, I wasn't doing like all of the harm reduction. I was doing like clothing and Narcan in Kensington. And I was just kind of advocating on that level. For the past 2.5 years, 3 years, like I had my relapse, but it was like not like justifying it. It was a very quick relapse and I came right back in and I went and lived in my own apartment in Kensington and I did like my outreach, just me. It was just me doing like outreach in Kensington. And then we were able to get enough to like increase it and volunteers started showing up. So it's been since then that I've been doing like real boots on the ground, regular outreaches that include like syringe programs. Prior to that, it was just kind of like Narcan and clothes.
So tell us what does a day in the life look like for you today? Executive director, founder, this. Yeah. Yeah. Like, what do your days look like?
I mean, they're crazy. I wake up every day around like 5. I spend about 45 minutes doing like my sage and candle burning and tapping in. And then I go to a 7 a.m. meeting every day. And then I just start my work. My work can look like different things. If it's a Kensington day, it's getting all the supplies and the kids together. If it's a house check-in day, like today, I was at the women's houses for about 7 hours, checking in with the women, seeing, how their day was, where they're at in their recovery, where they need support. Um, yeah. And then, so it just depends on one of the two things. I do a lot of overdose reversal trainings. And we also advocate. So if I have a resident who's got court hearings, like we'll go to court and advocate on their behalf. I reach out to local legislators and try and talk to them about upcoming new laws or bills that are being presented if we want them to support it for things like fentanyl testing strips or safe syringe programs, which are not technically like statewide offered. They're only supposed to be offered in Philadelphia County, which is where we work, but we want statewide. So, yeah, I mean, there's a lot. I speak in a lot of treatment facilities, and I have a ton of people that call me from like across the state. I have angel moms that call me, people who need help and like don't know how to respond to certain things. Yesterday, I had 3 individuals whose family members reached out to me and asked me if I could locate their family members in Kensington. So I spent hours walking around and I located 2 individuals. I was not able to locate the third, but it just kind of looks like engaging with like my friends on the street that are out there, and checking in, make sure they're okay.
Mhm.
And yeah, I don't know.
So you have a level of
It changes.
you have a level of respect on the street from those people still living the life?
I mean, they're my friends, so yeah, I definitely think we respect each other.
Mhm.
I mean,
Do you ever
yeah,
catch any? Did you ever catch any flack from people in the rooms surrounding what you do?
constantly,
Mhm.
constantly.
What do you tell them?
You know, well, people said, first of all, people, I heard different things. Like after when Pete passed away, um, I a few months later, I experienced a relapse and I immediately went to treatment. But like when I first got out of treatment, they were like, well, you relapsed because you do this work in Kensington. And I was like, that's not why. Well, harm reduction, you're going to relapse. And I was like, that's not why I relapsed. Like, and
Mhm.
so I felt like I constantly having to defend myself. There's some old heads in the program that are just, they don't understand what the work is. They're immediately turned off by it
Mhm.
because whatever, there's this very strict enforcement that they have. And there's individuals that are like, you can't even take psych meds. I
Mhm.
don't think that that's your job to tell anybody that. But
Mhm.
I always advocate for myself and I always advocate for others if they're in the room. If somebody's like being rude or unkind to an individual or saying something negative about MAT
Mhm.
or anything like that, like I've gotten to a space where I can stand firm and be a really loud advocate for those individuals and creating safer spaces for them.
Mhm.
And I've left a few meetings because they were deeply rooted in patriarchal, negative energy. And I just refuse to be there. And I don't have to leave the 12-step fellowship to just find a meeting that's more inviting and trauma informed, if
Mhm.
that makes sense.
Yeah. You think harm reduction should be a means to the end? A means to an end?
What does that mean?
Like, do you think that there should be an expectation attached to harm reduction as though, so what will help you find stability with the expectation that sometime you're going to achieve abstinence?
No,
Yeah.
no, I don't think that that's a realistic expectation.
Mhm.
I think harm reduction is seeking to lower the potentially dangerous side effects, right? Or whatever you want to call it. I never engage with an individual with an expectation that one day they will be sober. And that has been the way that I've had to look at it since I started going back into where I was homeless. I am there to give them a hug and to give them the supplies that I have, syringes, smoking kits, wound care, food, clothing, all that good shit, toiletries. I'm there to give you that shit and a hug, and I love you.
Mm-hmm.
And that's it. The minute that I put an expectation on them to behave in a certain way, I'm out of pocket. It's time to hang it up, because that's not how this works. That's not how it works. In my opinion, I don't think it does. Now, statistics and all the professionals, they want to be like, oh, you're 3 to 5 times more likely to access treatment if you do this and you do that. Good for you. I'm glad you figured all that out. I'm glad you did the math. I'm glad you used us like we were fucking lab rats, and you tested this theory and tested this stupid theory. How about just love people? How about that? How about just love people? They don't have to be sober to be loved, and you don't have to ask them questions about what they're going to consume or inject. How about just love them? Okay? And like, at the end of the day, that's what I try to do. That's it. I'm not here for any of the sciencey weird shit that's going on.
Got a comment coming in from Kyle S. Pearson. Hope I said your last name right, man. Let's see. Kyle says, I'm proud and glad you made it out, because I know personally how hard it is, especially in Kensington.
Well, Kenzo friend. You know the
like
Badlands?
Yeah. And another one.
Yeah.
My friend Gareth. Thanks for the comment, Gareth. Gareth says, the rooms need to be brought up to the reality of what's going on. Gareth is a plant medicine provider here in British Columbia. What else do we got here? We've got Cheryl. Cheryl, thank you for the comment. Cheryl says, bless you. How about just love people? How about that? Well, my friend, that's all that I have for you. The comments, I believe, have slowed down. Is there anything that you'd like to leave us with tonight?
No. If anybody's interested in seeing our work, check out savagesisters.org. We got a ton of different social media outlets, and super grateful for the opportunity to talk about all the good stuff happening, and appreciate you holding space for me tonight.
You're very welcome. What's your TikTok name?
Savage Sisters Recovery.
All right.
Everything's savage.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for joining us this evening. Thank you for sharing your experience, strength, and hope. And thank you for all the good work you're doing there on the ground. Take care, my friend, and we'll talk again soon.
Thank you.
There's power in numbers. If you would like to contribute to ending the stigma around emotional pain, please subscribe to our Facebook page and follow us on Instagram. Like and comment your thoughts on our posts. Find us wherever you listen to podcasts. Let us come together with our lived and living experience as a resource that has the power to engage new thought processes, to promote new ideas, to broaden the spectrum of care, and to show the world that the lie is dead. We can recover. There is a safer way, and we're here to show you how. If you would like to see everything we have to offer, visit www.hardknockstalks.com. Take care, everyone. Good night.